Theranos was able to get away with poorly performing machine by creating their own CLA certified laboratory with their own laboratory developed test. Wall Street reporter John Carreyrou explains this loophole and how Theranos was able to use it. Here's a piece from John Carreyrou in his interview with HBO while they were making the documentary about Theranos. So for one thing, they have exploited what I call a regulatory no man's land in the laboratory space. You have on one hand the FDA, which regulates reviews and improves the laboratory instruments that labs use, that they buy off the shelf and that they use in their labs. And on the other hand, you have CMS, the Center for Medicare or Medicare Services, which is the regulator of clinical laboratories. But then there's this category of tests known as laboratory developed tests, which are fashioned by labs with their own methods that aren't really regulated by either of these entities. And Elizabeth Holmes and her boyfriend, Sunny Balwani, were able to exploit this third category and say we fall in this category, what is known as LTDs, because we are using our own proprietary machine within the walls of our lab. Therefore, we don't have to be reviewed by the FDA, or at least our machines don't have to be reviewed by the FDA. And CMS, which regulates labs, doesn't look closely at LTDs, so that's the loophole that they were able to exploit. John Carreyrou explains this in very advanced words, but in simpler words, I can translate that Theranos was able to fall into the loophole, the LTD loophole, which means that they wouldn't have to be inspected by the FDA or CMS, which means they could get away with having faulty products. Another way Elizabeth Holmes was able to get away with fraud for so long was her ability to intimidate people who asked questions or tried to look more into Theranos. Elizabeth Holmes ran Theranos in a secretive environment like many modern-day technology companies like Apple or Samsung. This is not typical of companies that rely heavily on being informed like Theranos. Each department was isolated and was strictly forbidden from communicating with each other about the projects. For Holmes, this made sure that no employee could figure out what they were doing and what their design was not actually real. Scientists were even forbidden from writing peer-to-peer reviews from employees of a different department. Elizabeth Holmes is a very manipulative person and was able to make herself appear very powerful, but at the same time made herself look good inside and outside the company. She was also able to intimidate the more curious employees by making different legal threats if they would continue asking questions or expose any information. Another reason for Holmes not getting caught was her ability to appeal to the emotions of investors and her amazing use of marketing techniques. She was able to use many different techniques in order to gain the trust of now defrauded investors. Holmes was able to use the common fear of needles to appeal to emotions. She was able to share her commonly shared phobias of needles, which she compared to the vision of hell, in order to draw people's money to invest in the business. She was also able to play on people's emotions and the fear of their passing. She used many stories, like the death of her uncle, to relate to the investors and was able to give them hope. And this appeal to the emotions ensured that Holmes could get people to focus on Theranos' great purpose of trying to save lives instead of questioning the accounting and the technology, as well as using emotions. Holmes built up her own reputation and image by surrounding herself with established and well-known figures. Such included the U.S. Secretary of Education and her many other business gurus, like the owner of Walmart. She deliberately modeled herself after her icon Steve Jobs by dressing in his signature outfit, the black turtleneck. By doing so, she was able to have many people make a subconscious connection between her and Steve Jobs. Jobs wasn't the only person she wanted to be associated with. We can see this when she named her blood test machine Edison after the American scientist who invented the light bulb, another game-changing technology. These references to well-known figures were not only able to convince the investors to get behind the business, but was also what led to the world believing she was a great business leader. Almost everyone wanted her to succeed and could never see her for the fraud she was. The accounting principles that she violated